the neighbor's putting in a new roof. If you hear copious amounts of banging, that's what that is. I just watched 10, 11, 12 of season 2 of Andor. My videos for 10 and 11 are up. Feel free to watch those. We've reached the finale. Thank you for all who have been following this series. Your comments have been the highlight of this experience. It's my favorite thing about doing this channel is hearing what other people think about various pieces of media. And you guys have been so detailed and filled with such passion, and I love that. Even when you guys disagree with me, almost I love that discussion and hearing your points of view, especially since you guys have been very respectful, and I'm very grateful that, you don't agree, I don't agree, but I don't take that personally, and I don't get the impression you guys have been taking it personally, that, I have thoughts about the show that are not in line with other people's thoughts of the show, and I appreciate that. It's a rare space to find on the internet of being both critical and respectful at the same time. Very rare, and I'm very grateful that we've accidentally created such a space. So, yeah, thank you. On to 12. Episode 12 starts where episode 11 ended, which is the Imperial agents trying to arrest Clea and Andor trying to extract Clea, and there's a fight scene there that they managed to, spoiler alert, they managed to extract Clea. Clea's injured, there was like a stun mine and all of that, but it was a fun action scene. I'm almost surprised Clea survived that. They're rushing back to Yavin, and then we cut to Yavin, and Mon Mothma is arguing with Saw Gerrera, and Mon Mothma, oh my gosh, they managed to make her look so close to the original depiction of her. It was almost scary how alike they looked. I mean, the costuming and the makeup department for this show has been on fire since day one, and it's just so impressive. It almost takes me back. I mean, she just looks so much like Mon Mothma in the original series. It's great. It's great. But anyway, she's having an argument with Saw because Saw is crazy and she's more reserved than him. And this is about Death Star stuff. It's Rogue One stuff. It's basically setting up Rogue One stuff. Also, Organa is there. How did Organa get to Coruscant off screen? Because the last time we saw him, they were implying that if he stayed in Coruscant, he would basically be a prisoner there, and that the Empire would have a chokehold over him and his circle. Somehow, he's fine. He got extracted off screen. I'm sure there's some Star Wars media that covers that. But with the way they set it up, it feels a surprise, because they deliberately mentioned that he would be a prisoner in his own. Like, that's the way she said it. But whatever, he's there. Saw and Mon Mothma don't see eye to eye. He cuts the communication, and then Organa and Mon Mothma have this little joke about how this is harder than the Senate, and then they get interrupted by Cassian coming in hot, and he did this against orders, so they're pissed. Turns out, like, everyone in the Yavin Council kind of hates Luthen, except Mon Mothma, and they're kind of dismissing the Death Star information as Luthen being compromised or crazy or paranoid or all of that. But Cassian loses it. Cassian has been on shaky terms with Luthen for a while, and so it was interesting seeing him defend him and being like, "What are you? No, like Luthen had a lot of bad and a lot of good, but he, you wouldn't be here without him." Which was not the right call diplomatically, because that just pissed him off more. But it's true. It's very true. Luthen is a manipulative bastard, but he did a lot. Anyway, they basically ground Cassian in his room, but he gets to talk to Clea in the infirmary, and he promises to try to push this Death Star thing because Luthen died for it. They keep saying it over and over again that Luthen died for this, which I see how they're painting it that way, but objectively that's not true. He died destroying the evidence in his antique shop because he found out that information and he could have immediately extracted himself. He went back to that building to destroy evidence. That's what he died for. Objectively, that doesn't matter. It's a better narrative for the politics within that little Yavin group to say he died for it, so sure. And then there's a bunch of scenes back to back of Mothra with her cousin Val and her trying to find out if Cassian really believes the Luthen Death Star story, and we get Cassian telling Will that Luthen's died, and there's kind of all these scenes kind of mourning Luthen. There's almost a little bit of a martyrness to that, because a lot of those people were really mad at Luthen while he was alive, and now that he's dead, as often happens, they kind of aren't as mad anymore. Which is realistic. So, in any case, Val and Cassian talk, Val and Clea talk, Organa and Cassian talk, and eventually they all, or at least Organa, agrees to let Andor pursue the Death Star information to see if it's legit. And that, of course, sends him to go do his Rogue One stuff. We know how that turns out, but that's basically the end of his story. Though, Val says something that, at the time, drove me crazy. That he should call Bix, and the way it was worded, it sounded like it was his fault that Bix wasn't there, and I'm like, I'm sorry, Bix left him last 2 episodes ago. He's not the one who isn't calling. Like what are you talking about? And it just felt like Val gaslighting him into thinking that he's the one that's pushing Bix to stay away. And I was so confused. But let's put a pin in that, because that's a deeper hole to dig. Meanwhile, a voiceover of that manifesto that kid wrote in the beginning, back in season 1, and we find out that Leo, the ISB guy that has been kind of overseeing Daedra since day 1, is listening to it. And it's interesting hearing him listen to it. But it's clear Leo is taking the fall for the failure to not let the Death Star thing leak, and the loss of Luthen. So they're going to take him in, but he shoots himself first. I like the way his suicide was shot. It's off screen in a very somber way. Like, it's clear what's happening, but the way it was framed has been done before, but it's an effective framing. So at the end, we see Andor getting on a ship to go off to be a part of Rogue One. And as he's walking, we see cuts of various things and various people. And we get a shot of Daedra, who apparently is in one of those prisons that Andor found himself, which is, oh, what a twisted ending for her. Oh, that's so fitting and dark on so many different levels. So many different levels. There's something very, oh, what a great ending for her character. You could feel the twisting of the knife. You know, her obsession with order. Now you're in a place with lots of rules. The fall from grace. Just everything about that. Oh, it's great. It's great. Very solid. But besides that, everyone is kind of being jammed into their Rogue One starting position. We see a shot of the Death Star, a shot of Andor walking off the thing, Mon Mothra, and Organa. Like, everything's kind of going into Rogue One. And then we get a shot of the farming planet that we haven't seen since the first 3 episodes of season 2. And we see the little robot that they left there. And we see that that's where Bix is. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's walking through the fields of wheat. And then we find out she's carrying a child. Andor's child. Okay, now all of my confusion about Bix's exit at the end of season 9, now I have an explanation for it. Now I'm confused why the writers thought that was the best way to do that plot. Because now, so did she leave so that he wouldn't know? So here's the thing. The way it's done, we have no idea if Andor actually knows he has a child. There are two versions of events here. Either she left so that he would not find out and then feel like he had to leave the rebellion, and so she's hiding that child on the farming planet. That's option one. Option two is that Andor knew while she was there, and the whole reason that he wanted to leave in the first place at the end of season 9 was because of that child and wanting to be there and a father to the child. That's option two. Option one is the most likely, just because if Andor knew about the child, you'd think that would have come up in episode 9. Option 2 is way better. Their whole conflict at the end of episode 9 would have been made so much more sense and flow so much more naturally if you get the information directly, not as this kind of surprise twist at the end. Instead, she tells him, I'm pregnant, and then he's like wants to leave the rebellion to be a father, and she makes the call of like, no, you have to stay, you have to do this for our child. That's a much stronger narrative than what we got, which is maybe this happened off screen, maybe not, but the way it's written for the audience is Andor being like, I want to be with Bix, and I want to go away where the Empire hasn't corrupted yet. There must be a place, and just a reset. It reads as a redo of his previous characterization, and only afterwards, if he does know the child exists, do you get the added context of what that was about. The concealing of that is such a waste of a character moment. This is all the character moment of making the decision to put himself at risk and to fight for the rebellion to make a better future for his son is such that all of that meaning is kind of swallowed up by the order that this information is revealed to the audience. Revealing it in the final shot without any explanation. Does Andor know? Because we don't actually know if Andor knows that he has a child. If he doesn't, then why did he want to run off with Bix at the end of season 9, besides just resetting his character? And if he does know, why didn't the writers tell us that? Because it would have been so much more intense in the moment. But for whatever reason, they feel the need to... They love working backwards in this story. They love to set up things and then let you think about like, ooh, how did this connect? Skipping over things. This is not something you should have skipped. And it's not like you didn't have the time, because you had a bunch of scenes of Bix and him in the Yavin, their Yavin plot, him saying, I want to leave with you and all that. You could have placed the child stuff there and supercharge those scenes by a lot. But instead, they wanted, oh no, let's make it a plot twist at the end. No! That moment of her walking through the grass with a child in her arms would not have been lessened by us knowing about the child. The meaning behind it and what it means is not lessened by us knowing. Like a plot twist for plot twist's sake, there's no added advantage. The in-the-moment decision for her to leave, having that backdrop and it's just, I'm very against it. I'm very against it, because it just makes Andor, it throws so many questions of like, what is Andor's involvement in this part of the plot? Does he know? If he doesn't know, then the meaning behind it all is lessened. The whole point they added the child is to amplify the tragedy of his sacrifice in Rogue One. Look, if he had not died, he would have been able to raise a family. He gave up a chance at being a father to make a better galaxy for his child. That's a powerful character choice. But if he doesn't know, you rob him of the agency to make that choice, to sacrifice himself knowing the life he would have had. The tragedy of him going off on a suicide mission not knowing he has a child is sad, sure, but way, way less impactful. Anyway, but it's cool that he's a child, I guess, so that's nice. And then it ends. The whole show ends, and that's the end of the show. I liked the show. I felt like the overarching narrative was very patchwork and was missing a lot of scenes, though many people in the comments have mentioned to me that the show was supposed to be 5 seasons long, and that each time skip was supposed to be a whole season. If that's true, that explains like everything that I take issue with about this show. Like everything. Because almost all of my issues is that this feels like there's so much missing things. There's the narrative, a lot of the narrative arcs of all these characters are just missing, and like scenes that seem very critical for this plot are just not in it. Another writer might have just been like, okay, and just chosen one plot and just kind of focused on that. I almost respect the artistic integrity of like, no, I'm going to do all of the plots, and I'm just going to skip over things and just hope the audience follows it, which the audience does. I respect the respect it gives to the audience by being like, no, they'll get it. And we did. What it makes me think is that their strategy for what scenes they decided to do and what scenes they decided to skip over really came down to what they wanted to do. Because not all of it was necessary. Like, the wedding did not need to be those whole 3 episodes, but it's clear that they had thought about that wedding so much that I think they were like, no, I don't care that they slashed our season count by 4 seasons or 3 seasons. We're gonna do this wedding, and it's gonna be awesome. And I kind of see it. There's so much passion and love done in this show. There's so much care and attention to detail. I respect that they had this uncompromising vision that they wanted to do, and they were like, we'll pick the best scenes, the scenes that we want to do, and we'll just skip over the rest. The audience will figure it out. And we did. It's not confusing. For a show that skips over so much, it isn't very confusing. It feels rushed plot-wise and bloated in places and incomplete. But it doesn't feel confusing, and that's impressive. It makes me lament the slashed season count, because this show would have been so much better if it had been given time to focus on any of its ideas, because so many ideas were so interesting, so compelling, and then they just kind of have to skip over them and skip over characters and skip over their arcs, their entire relationships with each other. So much was cut. It's heartbreaking. But what's here is good. I loved it. The set design is second to none. The costuming is fantastic. The acting is fantastic. The writing is solid. Everything is pretty logical. Everything's pretty straightforward. My big issues is just I feel like the character arcs were disjointed, which would make sense if your whole strategy for writing a show is we're gonna just do these scenes and kind of skip over a lot of everything. It makes sense. I mean, if that is what happened, it is incredibly impressive. It is a writing achievement that they managed to make the condensing of 4 seasons into 1 season and still be awesome. How is that even possible? It made sense. It's very impressive. That's what I thought about it. I might do a video more in depth on my thoughts on Andor. I need to kind of think and stew for a moment. and articulate in my head how I feel about it. Because I feel very strongly. I love so much of it, and there's so many details that they put in. It deserves to be analyzed. It does. It's such a detail-oriented, rich thing that they've built and created, and I'm very happy to have watched it. Thank you for those who recommended it. It was awesome and something to look forward to every single week. I mean, one of my favorite things about this entire experience has definitely been the comment section for those. You guys have such interesting things to tell, and we have such delightful discussions. I mean, a lot of you don't agree with me, and I love that. And I love that we we all in the comments section feel comfortable, disagreeing and talking it out and hearing each other's points of view and being critical and respectful of each other's opinions at the same time. Very rare, and I appreciate it a lot. So those of you who have been following this, I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this series, consider subscribing. And if you want to support me further, I have a book that I'm releasing chapters for as we speak. The first 10 chapters are free in the link below. Give it a read. It's about a sentient sword trying, emphasis on trying, to save the city of its blacksmiths. Happy reading. Take care.